shiver. Goalkeepers nervous, strikers they'll deliver. Crowd roars erupted, you can feel the quake. 80,000 voices.
What have I woken up to? Rather, what have we woken up to? The drama at Newcastle United just keeps going on and on and on. Every day you hear something new, something different. Alexander Isak says he's not going to play for Newcastle United again. For me, that's just absolute madness right now, because someone that's been at the club for this long, played well for the club, scored goals for the club, helped the club win trophy. I get wanting to go to Liverpool because obviously Liverpool are a better club in terms sporting wise, in terms of Newcastle United, and they won the league title last season. Possibly can do a double, so it can do a repeat of that victory. So I get why you want to move to Newcastle United, why you want to go to Liverpool, but it's absolute madness. The drama goes on and on and on. So according to David Ornstein and Transfer Insider, Alexander Isak is adamant that he will never play for Newcastle United again, irrespective of what happens in the transfer market, irrespective of the deal being done, or irrespective of a deal being agreed. So irrespective of a deal being agreed. So doesn't matter if Newcastle United refused to agree a deal for with Liverpool, he will not play for the club. So when players come out like this, it does put the selling club, Newcastle United, in this instance, in a tight spot, in an odd position as well, and sort of forces their hands to sell, possibly to Liverpool. And I have a lot of Newcastle United fans who are saying, let them rot in the academy, play with the reserves, rot on the bench. I've heard something similar with Manchester United fans about Garnacho, let him rot on the bench. But I'm not quite sure how much Alexander Isak earns, but let's say he earns 120, 130,000 pounds a week, and you keep a player on the bench doing nothing, not working for you, just taking weekly wage. That's madness. In this era of PSR, you can't do that. I know you'd say the owners of Newcastle United are super wealthy, and 150, 200,000 pounds a week is really nothing to them. But right now, the way you have FFP and PSR dealings, you can't just dip into your resources, no matter how vast they are, and just say we'll plug every sort of financial hemorrhaging that happens. So you have that stumbling block. So at some point, you've got to let him go. I think it will only make financial sense in line with PSR and the likes to actually let Alexander Isak go and sell him off. So for me, if I was Newcastle United, what I'll be thinking to do at this point, so David Ornstein, Sky Sports, David Ornstein claimed that even if the transfer window closes without him leaving, Alexander Isak views his Newcastle career as over and has no wish to reintegrate. Now, this is crazy. That is, he has. So this is not just a falling out with the club at the board level. This is a falling out with the players as well, with the teammates, or should we even start calling them former teammates? So he's not willing to be part of the coaching, training, whatsoever. He wants to be completely gone. Now, if I'm Newcastle United, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, Liverpool, you want this player. I'm going to offer him to you £120 million. And I want some of your highly rated players. Like, for instance, I want your, what's his face now? I want your Rio Ugo Moha to be added to that. Test their will, So, and a lot of Newcastle United fans are going on about, the clubs have said they didn't want to sell, but they made serious efforts to sign some strikers. At least they made a very serious effort to get Benjamin Sesko. That didn't happen. Callum Wilson has left the club. They're looking at Nicholas Jackson. Chelsea have valued him close to 80, 90 million pounds. For me, I think he's crazy. Though I'm a Chelsea fan, I just think that valuation is just more like, let's put it out there and see if we get a serious bid, in return. So, but overall, this is crazy news. Crazy news. And Isak coming up with this. It didn't strike me as someone that would go to this length to say he wouldn't play for, Newcastle United again is just madness to me. Now, how would the fan, how would his former players, or rather his still present colleagues, how would they be feeling? Like me, Eddie Howe, how would he be feeling? Because I just think now, if you thought the bridge was burnt, right now everything has been buried. So, um, tough time. Liverpool now probably will be sitting pretty and just hoping of how being super confident that Newcastle United would accept that 110 million pounds offer that they've made. And nothing that I can do as well as a Newcastle United, from a Newcastle United's point of view, if that offer is made, I can take that money and get players that give me more value for money. Now I know in the European market, in the English Premier League market, certainly clubs like going for players from particular leagues, and I bit uppity about signing players from particular leagues, which is just madness to me. So they've gone for Isak. They were willing to spend north of 80 million euros to sign him. That didn't work out. So I would go for, and they're talking about sign, and there's the interest about the Spanish striker, Spanish international that plays for FC Porto, Samu Agueroa. But as it stands right now, I'm not quite sure if that's going to go through, because I think he has a huge buyout clause with FC Porto, because for Portuguese club and Spanish clubs, they always have crazy buyout clauses. And at this point in the season, with the season almost starting, you'd have to pay that buyout clause. You have to pay crazy amounts to get them out of that club. And you also have some other complexities about that deal. Now, I'm going to say this, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, you're wearing a Nigeria Super Eagles jersey, so you're going to say this. But it's true. You've got someone who scored 20 plus goals, in the Belgian league. Fits the physical profile that Eddie Howe seems to want. Because look at what he was going for with Sesko, with 6'5". Look at what he has in Isak. So you could go for Tula Rokodari for a fraction of the price, in my opinion. And he's at a club that open to letting him go, and he wants to leave. So that should be an easy deal to make. But at this point in time, relationship is done. And let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one, because right now it just seems to feel like this is what fans of club want to do. So how you go? How are you? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. AD at Newcastle United now, arriving for his medical. Newcastle now, and Wissa Sami Aguero was signed for Newcastle United now. Well, the Samu Aguero thing, while that's a deal that can be done, but Newcastle United, I don't think you would have any issue with Samu Agueroa joining Newcastle United, or his willingness to join Newcastle United. But where you might have issues with could be the club. So Newcastle United would have to just dump up the cash, go out there, pay whatever the buyout clause is, and negotiate with the player straight up, and that would be easy to go. Let's see how that happens. And then Wissa as well. Brentford say they're open and now willing to have negotiations about him joining Newcastle United. Let's see how that shakes out. If it indeed comes to fruition, Militao, that has been done. Should be officially announced, hopefully at some point this week or next week. But I think that has been done. We've got it. Here we go from Fabrizio Romano. So all that is done. But the main issue right now with Newcastle United is getting a striker in the building. And with due respect to Wissa, I don't quite see Wissa as that, striking solution. He's a nice player, right? Wissa is a nice player, but I don't quite see him as that striking solution. Well, he can come in as the second option, So just like I said, when Chelsea were going for João Felix, I said, you get a striker in the building, João Felix now becomes that sort of beautiful bow on the gift, or on the transfer window, the icing on the cake. So Wissa, while he's a decent player, I don't see him as that striker where you look at him and say that's where you want to build you want to build around him completely. So you still need to go out there and get a striker. But I think I understand why you need to get bodies in the building. But yeah. So fair play if Wissa is set to join the club, but I think if you're getting Wisa, then that means if you're getting Wisa and indeed building your entire play around Wisa, then how you set your team up automatically changes 100%. Probably you need to bring the likes of Gordon and Elanga ever so even more closer to Wisa, and so they can dovetail off each other, just like he used to dovetail, just like he used to play with um, Mbuemo. So I think that dynamic change. I'm not sure Newcastle United want to go that way. You still need to get an actual number 9, because I don't see Wisa as a number 9, because an actual number 9 that Wisa can play off of. And when Wisa is at his best is when he has players to play off of. So for me, I think that's what Newcastle United should do. And I said it before, look at other markets. Look at other markets. So if you just joined the stream, the big news that I woke up to, I'm guessing you woke up to it as well, is Alexander Isak saying he's not playing for Newcastle United again, irrespective of any deal with Liverpool. So if Liverpool agree a deal with Newcastle United, obviously he will join them. But even if a deal is not agreed, he will not be playing with the club, playing for Newcastle United again. And he says he doesn't even want to be reintegrated with the team. So it's not the question of, oh, he can sit on the bench. No, he doesn't want to be part of the team at all. So that's just crazy talk, in my opinion. And now despite the fact that he has a 3-year contract, which is just crazy. So this is one thing I say about players. When you sign a new contract or you sign a contract at a club, don't just jump on and say, oh, I'll sign this deal, 3 years, I'll earn £200,000 a week. Consider other things, your exit strategy. If I want to leave this contract, I need to have this release clause in there. I need to have this buyout clause in there. And I think it serves in the best interest of clubs as well. Or let that buyout clause be there. If a Spanish club that wins the league title makes an offer, this player goes. If a team that wins the Premier League title makes an offer, the player goes for XYZ amount, maybe £200 million or something of that nature. So when you have something like that, then it makes better sense. It makes it a lot easier for you, not just for the player, but for the club as well. Because right now, things are just super, super messy with Alexander Isak. So let me know your opinions in the chat about this Alexander Isak decision not to play for Newcastle United again. And what do you think Newcastle United should be doing? What should their options be? What should they try to do, respect to getting a striker in the building? For me, like I said, stop shopping in the same market. Try somewhere else. Look for other players, because you've done what you wanted to do all this while. You've gone for your Benjamin Sesko, young upcoming striker, didn't work. You've gone for a KTK, didn't work. Liverpool trumped you to him, and they still want Isak. For me, which is a bit crazy, because KTK, when Liverpool were making the move for KTK, why didn't Isak, go make all this noise? Why didn't Isak make all this noise, make this attempt to leave, throw his toys out of the pram as at that point, throw his toys out of the pram as at that point, so the move could have been done. But now you waited for Liverpool to sign a striker, wait for Liverpool to sign a striker, and now you're leaving, and then the striker that would have been your replacement at Newcastle United taking off their hands. Just crazy right now. Crazy madness, in my opinion. Alexander Isak, I don't know how this will work. We've got a three-year contract left with the club. So technically speaking, Newcastle United can say you're not going anywhere. But like I've said, what for the club to have to be paying his wages week on week, and him not playing in this era of, in my opinion, over regulation with PSR and FFP and whatever financial terms they throw out there, is just madness. Wouldn't make a lick of sense from a Newcastle United perspective to keep him in there. And like I said at the top of the show, I think the best thing for Newcastle United to do right now would be call the folks at Liverpool and say, okay, we are going to take an offer of 120 million plus some players, whether it's Javier Elliott in addition to Rio, Ugo Moha, get them in and have those two players, Rio Ugo Moha, I think this season he can be a very important player for a club. So if you get him in addition to Elanga, in addition to Anthony Gordon, that's some quality. Then you got Harvey Elliott. Then you can use the 120 million and look for replacements. And I tell you, there are options out there in the market that you don't have to spend. You could get two very, very good strikers for, let's say, 60. And that's even stretching it, especially if you're looking at certain markets. So for me, yeah, that's what I think. And now, if you want to join the discussion, I'll drop the link right now in the chat. So if you want to join, that's it. So we're talking about, and then the other news items that we have to talk about as well, because I was thinking I'll come here and talk about Garnacho to Chelsea, all that, talk about Baleba as well, because there's talk that Baleba is really interested in joining Manchester United. In joining Manchester United, but it's going to be difficult to deal with Brighton. And you have people some Manchester United fans that are just delusional. They think, oh, we're just going to get him for £50 million. Then you've never dealt with Brighton. Brighton, a very well-run club that never under any pressure to sell any player. So you have to stomp up the cash. Liverpool, if you remember, like 2 seasons ago, Liverpool offered, was it £150 million for Caicedo? Chelsea ended up paying £100 million for Caicedo. And you think that Baleba, I think a player that Brighton rate really, really highly, you can just waltz in because you're Manchester United, you have the devil on your shirt, and Mr. Baba will just, bow and cower before you. And at this time of the season, you have to make the offer. You have to make that offer. You have to meet their asking price, and it's going to be £100 million. And for Manchester United fans, don't make the mistake of thinking that you're going to wear them out. You're not going to wear Brighton out. You remember the mistake you made with Brentford, Manchester United fans, Manchester United board, the mistake you made with Brentford. You could have got the player for 65 million, but you wanted to be too smart, and you ended up having to pay 71 million pounds. And I promise you, if you go the same way with Brighton, you may very well end up paying 150 million pounds, depending on how desperately you want the player. So it is really, really tough dealing with Brighton, taking from a Chelsea fan that has been on the other end, expecting the deal to get done, and it dragged on and on and on and on till the end of the transfer window. So it's a super, super crazy one. Super, super crazy one. It's going to be. Sorry. And we have something similar as well with Alejandro Garnacho. Talks about him telling Manchester United that he's not going to play for them anymore. That probably he'll sit on. That he prefers to stay 6 to 12 months without playing and just staying on the bench. And you have Manchester United fans coming up with this thing again. Or the player should rot on the bench or rot in the reserves. In this era, you can't quite do that. You may want to do it. I see the point of doing it, that you're teaching a player a lesson. Like, you want the player to know who's boss. You want to send a message to other players as well, that you don't just come up and make any decision you like. The club is always bigger than every player. That's fine. But you have Ineos that sacked tea ladies. You have Ineos, that sacked paper boys. You have Ineos that sacked janitors. So you get where I'm going with this? They're not going to be the ownership group, that will allow someone in, I don't know, in for that 60, 70,000 pounds or thereabout to just sit, not play, not contributing anything, and just allow that sort of resource just bleed out of the club? I'm not sure. They're probably going to have to sell him. They're going to have to sell him. And I think it's almost like players right now, maybe in your fifth pro meetings or whatever, they all come to sort of decision to say, right now, we are not, if we want to leave a club and the club doesn't want to let us leave, we'll probably down tools. We've seen that with Xavi Simons, deleted everything concerning RB Leipzig from his IG profile, although that was to a lesser degree. You've seen the same thing with Ademola Lookman. He's not reported to training. He's deleted everything that concerns Atalanta on the social media pages as well. You've seen Isak, who is like the leader of the gang right now, saying he doesn't want to be reintegrated with his Newcastle United teammates. He will never play for Liverpool again, irrespective of the deal being done. That's just madness, in my opinion. Almost like that's what players want to do. But on the flip side of it, I know right now we're talking about the club, we're thinking about the fans, we're thinking about teammates. But if this was on the other foot, let's say Isak joined Newcastle United, first season scored 7 goals, maybe 2 assists. The next season scored maybe 5 goals, 1 assist. And then this season that has gone by, maybe he scored 3 goals to 2 assists. These fans that are going crazy right now would want him out of the club quickly. Eddie Howe, that's heartbroken now, would want him out of the club quickly. And a lot of people would, and a lot of pundits right now that are trying to say the way he's acting is not good, would have been asking the club to let him go. Like you saw what's been done with Anthony at Manchester United. He's been tossed out, not part of the plans. Jadon Sancho, not part of the plans. So I think this goes both ways sometimes, because the clubs can also, be as cold as the players, and choose not to respect any sort of contract. So I just think it's messy. For me, I think how clubs solve this issue is the contract. The contract, that's what binds you. And that's why I think players should focus more on getting lawyers to work with them. Because I think a lot of times you just have family members, maybe you have a brother with you, or you have some agent that's more like a mercenary and just comes around. All he cares about is his 5% cut or 10% cut. And most times players just care about how much they're earning per week, and that's it, as opposed to getting in touch with an exit strategy. Because that's very important. It's as important as what you earn, because it helps protect parties in terms of when the player has to leave. You say, have all the clauses you want. Like I said jokingly before, if you want sirens to sing you to sleep, and that is what will help you play, then you have it in your contract. If you want someone to come with a gold box, give it to you, that you have in your contract. If you want to join, let's say, a team that has won the league title in the last 2 seasons, you can have it in your contract. So you need to have everything in your contract. So for both parties, what's in the contract going into that agreement, going into the partnership, going into a season. And so if an external party, i.e. Liverpool in this case, meets everything in the contract, then good, fair play. No player feels like they're cheated. No player will feel like they've been hard done by. No party will feel like they've been hard done by. And it'll be fine for everyone. But this is where it's almost like certain aspects of the contract are just ignored. And it seems to be a running theme between Xavi Simons with RB Leipzig, like there's no exit strategy for him. Between Garnacho at Manchester United, although Garnacho at Manchester United is slightly different because an academy graduate, so the contracts for academy players are a bit different from when you come in from outside. And then it just seems to be a running team right now. And one other thing I want to point out, I've said it at the top of the show as well, it just feels to me like clubs are super, super interested in signing players only from a particular league, which is just madness. And then you complain about the price. That's simple. It's simple logic, demand and supply. If we all go to XYZ shop and you have the shirts there for £20, everyone keeps going to that one shop, the price is going to always be high. You can't keep complaining. You have to try other alternatives. You have to try other shops. You have to try other shops. So those are my opinions on this piece of transfer news so far. Um, then I'll talk about other transfer news, and then I'll come back to this. So with Xavi Simons' reported move, at least move away from um, RB Leipzig, they talk about Nkunku going the other way, and they've come up with these things where, oh, we want it to be two separate deals. It's not going to be a swap. Come on, man. I know this. I know there's PSI. I know there's FFP and all these financial regulations that you have to take into consideration. But come on, get the deal done. RB Leipzig, you want Nkunku. Chelsea, you want Xavi. Chelsea, you have Nkunku. RB Leipzig, uh, uh, you have Xavi. Just let the deal go. Have the swap. So you're sending this player to you're swapping players in Chelsea. You pay us maybe £30 million, on top of it, and get the deal done. All this madness, you're dragging the deal out so long, it's madness. And what is also crazy to me from a Chelsea fan's perspective as well is you're making all you, of course, the reports that Chelsea has, accelerated negotiations for Alejandro Garnacho. But for me, I feel Javi Simons is more of a need. Is more of a need at the club, in my opinion. Is more of a need because every other area you've got two players. Because so what you like about Nicholas Jackson is still available at the club. It's still available at the club. You still have Tyreek George, so you have two more options on that left wing. You have Bino Gittins already signed the season. You've got Tyreek George, who I feel is very, very good. I don't know why people are even thinking of letting him go. And then you've got Nicholas Jackson that, according to reports, that Chelsea are open to letting him go, but are not really desperate for him to leave. And he could be reintegrated into the team. And the way I look at it, if he's reintegrated into the team, I don't see him playing that nine role because of the form of João Pedro right now and the form of Liam Delap right now. So I don't see how he becomes the third nine. I think he may be played out wide to be a left wing option, in my opinion, because I think he's excellent in there. And I think Enzo Maresca made sense that about him as well. So I think Javi Simons is more of a need. That's where you do all the sacrifice you want to do, financial sacrifice, whatever you want to do, that is where you do it. And then let's talk about Chelsea being linked to Nkapie, the Balo left-sided centre back since Levi Colwell is out injured. But I think he's a decent player. I don't think it's something you should need to desperately do. I think Chelsea can make do with the centre back options you have right now because you've got Tosin, you've got Chaloba, you've got Aaron and Somino that for some reason some Chelsea fans have seemed to have forgotten about because I think Chelsea just buys a lot of players and that just causes a lot of Chelsea fans to forget about players they've already bought. So Aaron Anson, just like someone that has like 100 shoes, at some point you get to forget that you have that 99 pair. So it's just madness to me. So Aaron Ansamino, a highly rated centre back, 20 years old. I think this is an opportunity you can get to come in. You've got Josh Achiampong as well that seems to fit like a glove at centre back position. So yeah. Hello Frank, how you doing? So you see the confusion you and your club, our cousin? Two,
Morning,
uh,
morning, and
good morning. Two parties that used to be on best of terms, you've caused them to fall out. Newcastle United say rather, Alexander Isak says he's not playing for Liverpool for Newcastle anymore, irrespective of whether a deal gets done. So first of all, are you surprised to hear that? What do you think about it? Are you punching the air, thinking, okay, this this means it's heading over to Anfield?
the transfer madness continues. I think both parties are just ensuring that they stand their ground.
Yeah.
Obviously, or you don't like seeing players doing these things, but it feels like a discussion have been had last season to explore his options.
Mm-hmm.
You could say perhaps there might be a gentleman's agreement. We don't know. And Newcastle at the moment are not matching his ambition.
Mm-hmm.
in the transfer market, they haven't really done any substantial business. I mean, getting players in, so that would not match his ambition. And he's got this opportunity where Liverpool are willing to break the British transfer record and are waiting on him. And Newcastle playing hardball, taking the time to actually bring strikers through the door. So they need to, but the player needs to make his decision clear because Newcastle now, because they've not brought in players, are trying to say he'll backtrack. But if you think about it, if the longer the saga continues, it doesn't bode well for Newcastle because the current players will be affected because they wouldn't want to see a very good player training with the under 21s or whatever, not part of the team. And it will affect their morale. And, they're trying to be built on the success they had last season. They've got
Mm-hmm.
Champions League football, and they're still struggling to bring in strikers. So it would affect the players. I know some people say just you should train with the other 21, but it's not just that. It affects the team spirit. Also, if this situation is not handled properly by Newcastle, because Liverpool are ready to break the British transfer record, they had a bid of 110 million pounds rejected,
Mm-hmm.
and Liverpool said they'll only go back in if Newcastle opens the door, and they've been waiting patiently. I believe as soon as a striker comes through the door for Newcastle, Liverpool will pick up the phone and give
Yeah.
Newcastle a call. And also, if you want to think about it long term, there are players that will be watching Newcastle and see how they handle this. And if you're a youngster in 2, 3 years time, and this situation has not been dealt properly, you might want to rethink going to Newcastle because, or you
Yeah.
might be the breakout star tomorrow, and your the decision is not respected. You could argue both ways. Some people say, "Oh, he's got a contract, so as a result, he should honor his contract." But he needs to see the ambition from the club. It's a complete shambles. The sporting director, the lady that left a few years ago, was apparently she was responsible for the negotiation of his pay rise, but the last sporting director that who resigned or left last year or this year, apparently he didn't continue on with that negotiation. So it looks like there've been some issues that have happened internally, and now it's all coming to light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
from a Newcastle perspective, you always want to stand your ground because the football club comes first, and
mhm.
I feel like they are softening the blow. These things happen to football clubs. They'll paint the player in a bad image and said, "Oh, we tried, but he still wants to go, so there's nothing more we can do."
Mhm.
I just believe, in a week or two, would hear a lot of progress on this.
Yeah. Well, if I
Yeah,
if I can push back a bit on the Newcastle United not wanting to match his ambition. First off, the Champions League, they won their first trophy for one, and then you can also argue that PSR has not been fair to Newcastle United, and English football in general has not been fair to Newcastle United because in the Premier League, because before Newcastle United we were taken over by PIF, you didn't have
yeah,
this third party rule or regulation that sort of prevents an owner of a club, using partners or companies that they are related to sponsor their club or to partner with their club and do transactions like that. So they immediately brought that in. That was brought in specifically for Newcastle. Anybody can argue anything, want to argue. No, because the way how quickly it was brought in. So just like how FFP was brought in for Roman, but don't you think at least the ownership they have that to say we really would have spent on this club, but we are held back, even if we are richer than all the clubs put together in the Premier League, but we are held back by these regulations that don't allow us to spend. So it's not a question of we don't want to meet your ambition, but Um, we have our hands tied by this other sort of considerations. What would you say about that one?
Yeah, it's it's unfortunate that Newcastle with the owners they've got, without the money they can spend. But it's as a result of Chelsea and Newcastle, what they've done. So they are trying to put controls in place, but you could argue that it's not fair for um, owners wanting to buy clubs, and it's not incentivizing people because you need to spend money to be able to reach um, some level of success in the
Yeah,
Premier League, because there's a huge gap, and you can only go about competing at the top of the table by either going the long road and building slowly,
hmm
or buying quality players, and or revamp your squad as quickly as possible, and you'll be in a position to challenge.
yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, they are not there. They can't do that because of PSL, so they have to
Yeah,
go do the other path.
yeah. For me, I think that the way I look at it, I think the way football is governed like you're trying to keep certain things, and certain clubs are seen as you know the special, and the way it's governed. I don't think any industry is governed like that. I don't think any industry is governed like that, if I'm honest, because
I think, yeah, if you look at the other clubs that have not been managed properly, they run into losses, especially all the lower clubs, they go into administration. So they're just trying to ensure that clubs are sustainable, and you are not pumping in endless money into the team. But it feels like there would be a change coming with this PSR. I'm not quite sure what the change will be, but it feels like there will be some form of adjustment, because it's the longer it goes, you learn new things about it, and there'll be some
yeah,
adjustment. That's just my opinion.
for me, I think
But yeah.
it's pretty simple. Like if you're talking about sustainability, if someone is coming to spend money, you say, okay, you want to spend money, have an asset that you attach to the money you're spending. If you spend 3 billion, if you spend 500 million, 600 million, you have an asset that can be actioned against. You know, if you're leaving the club, if there is death in the club, or things like that, because it's a catch 22 really. You can't really compete because if you look at Manchester United, Newcastle to break that gap would have to spend more money to actually get to them. You can't keep saying, oh, they have to move at the same level, move the same way. It's not really going to work. So, but let's say other things. And what I want to also ask you, because I've been thinking about this as well, because you see a lot of clubs they complain, oh, this player is too expensive. Cesco, they're paying like 80 million, going to be like 80 million euros to sign him and all that. But I keep asking myself, see, you see players in other leagues that that score goals, that are good players, that go for a fraction, of that price. But clubs don't seem to be interested in those players. Is it just because of the standard of the leagues they play in? Like for me, one name I want to bring back home is like who've been watching this channel will probably be sick of hearing the name, but I can't help myself. Maybe because it's Nigerian, but he also finished the season in fine form for Genk. Last season he scored 21 goals. He meets the physical, requirements of the Premier League, and especially the profile that Newcastle United are looking for. But just using that as a base point to talk about other players that play other leagues, like look at what Brighton they do. They sign a player for £2 million somewhere, loan him out to one club, he plays a bit, they bring him to their club, and then he plays there for 1.5 seasons, and then he's worth £100 million. And then Chelsea and Manchester United go and give them money. So, what do you think about this things where clubs seem to be reluctant going to certain leagues to sign players? Is it just a quality thing, or they are missing something?
I think it's a combination of different factors. If
Hmm
first you have to look at who is the sporting director.
Mm-hmm.
What is the sporting director body of work? The scouting network.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at some sporting directors, they have strong knowledge of Portuguese football, Brazilian football, and they naturally tend to get players from those leagues,
Mm-hmm.
regardless, even if it's their League One or League Two. And if you don't have a steady sporting director that can come up with a plan that should be executed long term, you find out that there'll be constant changes. And because there's so much money at stake in the Premier League,
Mm-hmm.
if it feels like the club only want to sign players from a certain league, no one wants to take that risk anymore, like Brighton, you know, Bournemouth. They just feel like by buying a player from the so-called top leagues, it's mitigates the risks of failure. The player would be able to perform in the English league. So yes, it is an interesting point you have raised, because there are definitely the talents out there that are not at the moment playing for the big European leagues. And surely, even if it's not the top five or top six clubs, you would
Mm-hmm.
like to think that one of the teams would take a punt on those
Okay.
players,
Yeah.
like the striker you've mentioned, to
Yeah.
see how he goes. But you know, no one wants to be brave enough to take that step, because
True.
if it doesn't work out, then it's on you. So yes, I completely understand what you mean. But again, having said that, would they still sign players from Brazil, and not all of them are successful in the Premier League, but because of the way they have a successful track record, you always find clubs willing to take the punt. And
Yeah.
obviously, historically, Brazilians are known for their flair and footballing ability. So it just clouds the judgment. But
Phenomenal.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and it depends, because most clubs like Brighton, Liverpool, Bournemouth, they have a blend of data-driven decisions. So it's not just the eye test and having a feel for the players. There's a lot of data captured and analyzed for that player before buying those players. So you could argue that some of the other clubs are still catching up and are not quite there. So they don't have the resources or manpower to send people to watch these teams or gather them. So I'm not sure of their process, but it feels like these clubs that use a combination of data and the old school way of scouting, the field, the eye test, and blend this together seem to get it right 9 out of 10 times. But there is so much that can be done to highlight the profile of these players. So it could be the agent, it could be themselves trying to elevate their profile,
Yeah.
because yeah, that could help in making sure that they are known. Because if you think about it, though, if you look at it from a fan perspective,
Mm-hmm.
we hardly watch those leagues or even highlights. But you could argue that as a sporting director, it's your job to go around.
Yeah, it's
So
a job. It's a
yeah,
job to go around and look. Because like for me, I'm not a sporting director of any of any club.
mm,
I wish I could get that job and get like cool 10 million every year. But I see players as well, and I see different sort of players.
yeah,
Doing this channel, I see players all over, all over the world, and there's some players I look at and say, "Wow, this player exists." Like that, Uba Charles, was a winger. I think he's been converted to a central midfielder, so a central defensive midfielder. So the way he wins the ball, his pace and his skill in that central midfield is just madness at this point. But yet, probably I get your point of club thinking, well, the league he plays in right now, can he really come in and be ready to plug and play right now in the Premier League and ready to contribute? So, that may be an issue. Then talking about bravery and using data-driven recruitment and all that, you got Carlos Baleba, at Brighton, Manchester United apparently are interested in him. So how do you think that is going to go down? Because for me, I think Manchester United, if you're dealing with Brighton, you best just bring the cash out and just do it. Because if you're thinking you're going to waltz in, some people are, I saw something on X where some people are saying for 65 million pounds you're going to get Baleba. I say you're joking. You've not dealt with Brighton before. Just bring
No,
another
I think
100 million pounds and pay, and just save yourself the heartache. If you're not ready to pay that amount, because that's why I look at it. I'll say this and then I'll let you have your say on it. First off, Premier League clubs have money, except those ones that just spend crazily. There's money with TV rights and all those kind of things. And when you see clubs that will finish 20th that drop down to the championship, they probably go like if 150 or they're about 150 million pounds as parachute payment down to the championship and things like that. So there's money. And then when you add it to how Brighton they are managed, they're managed in a very efficient way. They have this multi-club ownership thing too as well, where they have, I think there's a club that the ownership group, they have in Belgium and other places as well. So they're able to get players maybe from second division, Ecuadorian league or Mexican league, something like that, get players and then loan them out to those clubs like Mente, I think, Feyenoord and things like that. So players like that. So they're able to, that was Mente is incidentally a Newcastle player. So, but they're able to get players like that. So essentially, the point I'm talking about now, they're able to take the risk on Baleba. Now he's come to Premier League, he has really shown, and now Manchester United wants him. And fair play, I did say in the previous video, if I think we were on that video as well, I said if they want to really play this Amorim's 4-3-4-3, you need two central midfielders that can go two way. So first of all, what do you think? Do you think this is a deal that can be done quickly? And just your overall thoughts on Carlos Baleba being linked to Manchester United.
yeah, the reports that I read have said, the player is keen on the move.
Mm-hmm.
However, the club to club negotiation will be difficult.
Yeah.
And like you rightly mentioned, Brighton, they value their players and they stick to their valuation. So it's not going to be a cheap deal. You can't get Baleba for 60 million. It's going to be a very expensive deal. And if United are ready, then they just have to spend the money. There's no two ways about it. He's a very good player, and you can see the direction of the new Manchester United. What's interesting, what I find funny is that Jim Ratcliffe had an interview a few months ago with Gary Neville, and he was saying there's no money in the club.
Mm-hmm.
Was using that as a justification for the sacking of
Sacking
about 200 people.
cleaners and janitors.
And but they've just launched their new training center, or
Mm-hmm.
what, 50 million pounds. So Cristiano Ronaldo was right when he said that they had to step up. The training facilities were not up to standard.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they can still spend all this money and sack 200 people, and they keep on spending. But it's United. If you're looking at just the transfer, well, they've done some good business, and we will see if Baleba deal will be sealed, and they still have a few players to offload. Garnacho is getting closer to going to Chelsea. I'm sure Anthony would go to
Betis.
Real Betis. Then there's the, can't remember his name. There's left back too. He's on the list to be offloaded. He was on loan in PSV last season or so.
Man,
Um,
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
so I think he wants to be so. And there are also reports of the PSG goalkeeper going to
oh yeah.
United. Yeah, because he's not in the squad, the Super Cup squad for tomorrow. He's been left out. So, well, you wonder if Manu are involved in that conversation. Yeah, I think Manu are actually going strong if they are able to
To get
sign these players,
Amorim.
then they'll have
Yeah.
a good deal. But yes, the from the Brighton perspective, they know the evaluation. They wouldn't budge for any reason. You have to pay
You
them up.
have to stump up the
Yeah,
cash. That's true.
yeah.
I have to
I
stump up
think
the cash and get
Liverpool have been the only one that have gotten away from Brighton's evaluation because we bought McAllister for 35 million, which is certainly not a 35
yeah.
million
So I think
pounds
that's the
player.
thing where I will raise with Isak. I talked about other players that have been on the move, that have been signed. I say, don't. Is it that when you go with your agent, when they go with their agents and their lawyers and their entourage, they just think, oh, what am I earning a week? Per week? Okay, I've earned £100,000 a week. Okay, that's it. Fine, that's all good. Let's forget about everything. And then when you sign the contract, you look at everything. Your exit strategy. I'm leaving. What is the release clause? Is it £10? Is it £1 million? Is it £200 million? Whatever it is. Contract. It can even go down to the level of if a club, if this particular club bids for me, you allow me go. You can go down to all those details. Is it like they don't actually think about that? Because what I've been seeing recently with a lot of players, not just Isak. Isak is the most high profile one, but there's been Javi Simons is taking away everything concerning RB Leipzig from his IG profile. You've had even our own Nigerian boy, Ademola Lookman, did the same thing with Atlanta on his IG profile, taking away everything that connects him to Atalanta on his profile. You've got Alejandro. That's something I want us to speak on next. Alejandro Garnacho, he says that he prefers to stay 6 to 12 months and not play anything at Manchester United, except he's allowed to join Chelsea. So, first question: do you think the agents of these players are not doing right by these players, seeing the fact that they seem not to have an exit strategy in their contract for one, that they have to throw their toys out of the pram every time they get to move? And then what do you think about this whole Alejandro Garnacho to Chelsea?
We'll start with the agents. I think it's a combination of factors. Agents do things differently, and some might not envisage that the player will develop so fast to be able to call for those clubs. While some players at that time they don't have the or the power
Mm-hmm.
to feel that they can insert all those clauses into the contract. So perhaps the approach will be signing the club first. When we review the contract in a year or two, then we insert all those clauses because you remember you're coming from most times from a smaller team
Mm-hmm.
to a much bigger team. So the the number of clauses you can put, there's a power struggle because you are not a star name. When you are a star name, things happen. So, but I'm sure a lot of agents would learn from this. And if you look at it, the transfer market has changed rapidly
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the fees that are being spent on players. So you might be shooting yourself in the foot, as in the case of McAllister, where we only paid 35 million for him,
Mm-hmm.
by um, adding a release clause that might not meet the your valuation at the time of sale. If you look at Morgan Gibbs White, the analysis was that at the time he signed his contract was that if anyone pays 60 million, then he's theirs. Apparently that was done in is a confidential part of the contract, which I
Yeah,
still
but
don't understand.
I don't think
But
he's even still at this point a 60 million pound player.
so
I don't think he's
so
worth
yeah.
60 million pound now.
So but again, so that's it. Then but for Garnacho, his attitude simply stinks since towards the end of the season. The things he posts online, his brother, I don't know if his brother is also his agent, they come and they post so many things that,
Hmm.
just bring more noise to himself
Yeah,
and the club. But it looks like he will get his move to Chelsea because Chelsea are keen on signing him. They've only got Kittens on the left. So if they sign him, he'll be an addition to the team. It looks like he will have some outgoings. Christopher is going to leave. He's not played a lot of football this
yeah,
since he signed for Chelsea. He's just been injured, and it's a World Cup year. And Nicholas Jackson wouldn't want to be sat on the bench game
yeah.
after game because so far it looks like the coach would use Dilap and Joao Pedro. So he's saw reports that he's open to explore his options, and I think if I'm Newcastle, I would have a
Yeah.
conversation about that player because he feels like Newcastle might be the club where he reignites his form and consistency. His stats, to be honest, are not terrible
They're
for
not terrible,
Chelsea,
but they're not
but
like I want to win
um,
title level.
yeah, no, they are not. Well, that's why, if he goes to a team like Newcastle, that pressure might not be too much on him and
Yeah,
he might be able to express himself more. Yeah, it's Chelsea. It's just you guys do.
it's
You guys
madness
buy
for
a
me.
lot of players, but you also sell a lot. So you do a lot of
It's madness.
business.
Why I say it's madness is when I look at Garnacho's skill set, I look at Tyreek George's skill set, I don't see that clear separation to say, wow, Garnacho is so good. He's so much better than Tyreek George. So I don't see why you're hell bent on getting him like it's a game changer. If you are getting like an R9, someone who you know that this guy, man, is going to be a game changer, is coming in, maybe gives you 15 goals from that, left wing with maybe another 10 assists. Wow, this kind of player, game changer. Young player, you understand, you can go on loan. But look at Garnacho, like he's not that much better than what's his face, in my opinion, than Tyreek George for one. And I feel like Jackson is not a nine. That's my opinion. People may disagree. I don't feel like Jackson is a nine. I feel like Jackson has all the minerals to be an actual world class left winger. He's got the pace, he's got the skill 1v1, he's got the physicality. I think he's 6 foot. So as a fullback, you have that sort of profile running at you. It can be very deadly for you, and you can combine well with Jao Pedro that like to drop into midfield and those wide areas sometimes, and they can have that good combination there. So when I look at it, I say you really want to go for Garnacho when you have these two options. It's not really mad that you need to get him. I feel more focus should be on getting a Javi Simons instead. Because every area you have two players. I'll just say that now. Stop. Yeah, every area you have two players. Right wing, you've got Estavayo, you've got Pedro. Left, you've got Gittins, you've got Tyreek George, and um, possibly Jackson. Center forward, you've got Jao Pedro and Liam Delap. That 10 row where it's just Palmer, that you have. You don't have another 10. So I think Javi Simons should have been or should be the option where you focus in on. So yeah, go on. About say something.
Yeah, Chelsea they had interest in Javi Simons, and I believe there were some progress made in the conversation. However, I saw a report saying that Chelsea were waiting to make a sale
Hmm.
before signing him, but it looks like Man City might also want to sign him
Mhm.
now. But again, it's there is Savino that Spurs are interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Grealish has gone to Everton on loan, so not sure where Man City are with who they want to sign. They've been reports they might go for Rodrigo or Javi Simons. But yeah, I do think Javi Simons would be a better fit for Chelsea compared to the other names that have
Yeah,
been flying around. Garnacho is a talent, but he's not consistent
he's not
enough to be able
consistent and
to.
he's not super enough. You know, like
Yeah,
Ronaldinho
yeah,
used to go out partying, drinking, whatever. I'm not advocating for that for those watching, but he used to go out doing all he would do. But game day, super special. He carried the whole
yeah.
team on his head. But Garnacho, is he that sort of person? And there was a time when you used to get leaks from dressing room, from Manchester United. You used to get leaks from dressing room, and it used to be those leaks were attributed to him via his brother and all that. So that's something that really Chelsea would want to be in the dressing room, because Madueke, people were talked a lot about his character, but I just looked at said Madueke, like, really, what character issues did he have as much? Okay, he sagged the shot. Okay, that's the age he's at. Talk about rap, go out, sing. So that was that really that much of a character problem? I won't go out to
It's
say
not. It's
that,
a
but that's the
lifestyle.
age.
It's not a
The age.
character. It's a lifestyle. And
Yeah,
most
that's
of the
lifestyle choice, and it's
Chelsea
not doing anything
players,
wrong. So you let
most of the
Madueke
Chelsea
go
players are
for
like that anyway.
Garnacho, and you look at, and then someone, there's something on X where they say, "Oh, Chelsea have done character study, of, is it not character study? They've investigated his character and they have no issues with it." I said, really? But you have character issues with Madueke, but I don't know what you're looking at. So I think sometimes in football, if you just need a couple of people rooting for you in that team. And right now it seems like Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley, the sporting directors at Chelsea, that are super keen on Garnacho. Because for me, I don't really see the need for him, but the powers that be, they want to sign him. So, but one question I want to ask you about someone that can possibly replace um, Isak at Newcastle United. My candidate, if I have a candidate in Tolu Arokodare, whether that happens or not is left to be seen. But there was a talk of this other Nigerian eligible person, and he's no longer eligible to play for Nigeria. I don't think he's now a Spanish international. Plays for FC Porto, Samu Agehowa. So
Yes.
when I look at him, I think he has the physical attributes because he's got the physicality, he's built like 6'3" or thereabout. He's got the pace, he's got the shot, but inexperience is still there. He's 21 years old. So do you think maybe, since it seems like Eddie Howe is now the striker whisperer, because people forget Isak isn't the super striker, wasn't the super striker he is now when Newcastle United first signed him. Whether was it 16, 6 goals, I mean 8 goals or thereabout he scored for Real Sociedad. So do you think this would be a good fit if it indeed happens, although they say the deal will be a bit complicated?
I believe he will be a good fit because, like you mentioned, he's got eye for goal. He's got the physical strength, and under Eddie Howe, he would definitely improve because Isak and a few other players improved in the squad. Last year, if you look at Murphy playing from the right, he was a completely different player. So
Mm-hmm,
players do improve under Eddie Howe, and I think he would be a good signing. A good signing would be him and Nicholas Jackson.
mm-hmm,
Um, and Newcastle would have two very solid attacking players that Eddie Howe can work with and see how
yeah.
they can play better. Yeah, he does sound like a good
But what do you think about
name.
Wisa? Because I think Wisa is a name that has been linked with them more concretely than either of these names.
Yeah, I think Isak, Wisa's name has been on the cards for some time now, and um, he was consistent last year with the number of goals and assists he scored. So
Mm-hmm,
it feels like a safe buy because
mm-hmm,
you are sure of what you are getting. He's not that young. I think he's 28 or 29. but you are guaranteed that he works hard for the team. He will contribute goals by scoring or providing assists. So that feels like a safe buy. So I believe Brentford are softening their stance and are willing to let him go. So uh, we should watch that space for this week or so. That move might happen. Perhaps Brentford are looking to bring in someone first, or maybe not public news, but have that negotiation with the striker they tend to bring in before giving the go ahead for that deal. But for Newcastle, if you want to play it safe, then I would say Wissa and Nicholas Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they are both in the Premier League. It wouldn't take them time to adapt. Thinking about it, it would Newcastle style of play would suit Nicola Jackson as well because he's
They
got
can run
pace and
aerials
he runs with the ball. So
yeah.
yeah, so it would be a good move. I think it's gotten to the point where conversations are happening behind all the scenes because I don't think Newcastle would have just stopped when they couldn't get Sesko. The conversation with Wisa has been ongoing, so that will continue. So I believe they would ignite for further conversations with other strikers to see if they can bring anyone through the door. But we just need to sign Isak for Liverpool. There's no two ways about it because we're actually very shorty in attack, and we need
What?
to bring in. Yeah,
What
we
are
are
you talking
short in
about?
attack. Yeah,
You
we
know,
have
my
only
son that
one.
have like 4 pairs, 100 pairs of shoes and wondering what to wear. I say, I have nothing to
No,
wear.
no,
That's what you're
no.
doing right
We
now.
have one. We only have one recognized striker, which is in Eketike.
Okay. But
Yeah,
when
we
was the
have
last time
sold.
Liverpool relied on this on a orthodox number 9? When was the last time?
Yeah,
Because
because
Salah is the main man still.
no, so Salah is the main man, but it doesn't stop us from having a striker.
Mm-hmm.
The strikers last season they chipped in Luis Diaz, Gapo,
Mm-hmm.
and Nunes. But
Okay.
Nunes was a main striker, but he wasn't consistent. He's a proper nine, and we had Diego Jota.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Diego Jota is no longer with us. May so rest in peace. We have sold Darwin Nunes. We have sold Luis Diaz. So you can see that your attacking options gone. Luis Diaz has that can-do attitude, that fighting spirit, as so he's game with Gapo where they changed from one game to the other, it was a good fit for the left side. But now you have Gapo and you have the young Rio. You wouldn't want to put too much burden and expectation on his shoulder at such a young age. We have just one recognized striker in Hugo Eketike, and obviously you've got Salah. You've got Vets behind, who is a 10, but you wouldn't want to use him. There's an option to use him as first nine, but you can't spend all that money to start playing him in a position that he
Mm-hmm.
can play, but it's not the most
It'll be a
effective.
waste. It'll be. I
Yeah,
have
be
no
aware.
wish to have with players anything like first 9 or whatever. It'll be
Yeah.
an actual waste.
So if you look at the game over the weekend, the Community Shield, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen people saying, "Why did they bring out Hugo Eketike?" Is because he's the only striker we've got in the team. It's too early to start suffering from injuries because the Premier League starts on Friday. So you want him fresh. So there weren't so much players he could bring in. He couldn't bring in um what's the Italian guy? Chiesa.
Chiesa, Federico
Yeah,
Chiesa.
yeah, because
Is he thinking
he
of
would.
leaving?
Yeah, there's negotiations going on in the background. He's not even fit because he wasn't part of the preseason uh, team, so
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't even fit in the first place.
Chiesa. Oh,
And
Chiesa, my
and
boy, is oh, Chiesa. What happened to
yes,
that boy? Oh, I don't know.
I think he wasn't when he came. He wasn't fully fit, and he had setback, and he didn't quite get to that level. And Arne Slot towards the end of the season was saying he will play more this year, but the Italian coach, I think it's Gattuso now, has said if he wants to make the World Cup team, he needs to be playing regularly. And in Liverpool at the moment, he can't get
Only
that.
play regularly
So
now.
he has to go back to Italy. We do have a fantastic song for him, though, and is everyone loves him in the club, but it's just part of football. If he goes, we wish him well, and uh, all the best
Yeah.
if he goes to one of the teams in Italy. I've heard that Atlanta, AS Roma, but yeah, we need a striker.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get Isak, brilliant. We need a centre back, McGay, and
Mm-hmm.
there's an Italian young midfielder, Leone. If we can get that centre back, fantastic.
Won't you
Yeah.
have Badashil Disasi? Let's give you Badashil and Disasi, and you give us the inexperienced young man that we're not sure what he will become, Rio Ugumoha, and you
No,
take two defenders.
you already sold him to us, so
Yeah, he can
it
always
means
come back. He can always come back home.
it,
There's
it
no law
means
against against
you did not
buying someone
value
you
him,
sold.
so
We
yeah,
can
we
give you
didn't value him.
Badashil, give you
Yeah,
Disasi, you know, two centre backs for the price of a young, a young player. So,
no.
but quickly, first off, if you just joined the show, thanks for joining the show. We talked about initially about the show. Isak has said he wants to leave Newcastle United. Not only that, he's not going to play for them again. Whether or not the deal is whether they're able to have a deal done between themselves and between Newcastle United and Liverpool. Let me know your opinions on that one in the chat. Now, what other name, Frank, has come up as well for Newcastle United? Before we're going to talk about other issues, other topics, is Randall Kolomwani. I think that's the name of the player that they've talked about. They've had negotiations about that player. I think that they'll talk about him coming, but the player is more keen to go to Juventus because he was on loan from PSG to Juventus. He's more keen. Do you think that's a deal they should pursue? And then before I answer that, I want to give my thoughts on Wisa to Newcastle United. I don't think he should be a player you sign as your nine. I think he's a player where you get your nine. Maybe I don't know if one you can get him. I'm not sure that will happen. You can get Omorodion, which is that Samu, or you can get I don't know, get an actual number nine, and then you get him. Then it makes sense because he's one of those type of forwards that like to be wide than be central. So that my thought now. So thoughts on Kolo Muani. You think it's the right move first off to Newcastle? Do you think he'll be a right fit first? And do you think it will even happen?
He's a player with potential, but I don't think he's the right fit because Newcastle at the moment they need a striker to hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a time to sign young players and see how they get on. I also think that the deal will be very difficult because the conversation with Juventus had been ongoing. So to convince him to otherwise we need a lot of persuasion and possibly monetary factor to be considered as well. But yes, it's one of those maybe in a year or two
Mm.
he'll be set to lead the line all by himself.
Yeah.
But with Wisa, I think he can still be the main man or share that with someone else because he works hard for the team. He doesn't just stand and wait for you to pass the ball to his feet. He makes those runs, he tackles, he works really hard for the team. So he would fit in well with the Newcastle style of play where they all um, are, are hard workers on and off the ball. You see them chasing down, pressing, counter attacks, with speed. So he will do well. But Newcastle, on the different circumstances, if they still had Isak and they sign Wisa, Newcastle fans will be happy. But if they sell Isak, they need to bring in more than one player that would excite the fans. So I don't think Wisa will excite the fan, even though he's a good fit. Hence
Mhm.
why because earlier the reports from Newcastle is that they need the word they use is high ticket striker.
Okay.
And we don't have a lot of high ticket strikers at the
Mhm.
moment. And it looks like all the names that have been circulating all summer, they've all gone to the different clubs.
I
So
think Newcastle missed a trick. They missed a trick. They missed a trick. Can you imagine Victor Osimhen and Newcastle
yes, he is Victor Osimhen would have
in a city
been
that would have
able.
embraced him like Newcastle, just like how the
Yes,
Arsenal fans have embraced him? Would have been absolute fire for them.
that
But
is, yeah, I can see that fit. That would have been perfect because the Newcastle fans are fantastic fans. So I can see him fitting in well. But I wonder if because of the issues they had at the top with the sporting director, and that might have
mhm,
um, in influence how fast they act in the market because Victor Osimhen was a good shout for several clubs. He could have been a good fit for Chelsea. He could have been a good fit for United, and he would definitely be a good fit for Newcastle. But
yeah,
for one reason or the other, no English team seem to have
yeah.
made that move. But the package, the overall package would have been very expensive anyway.
I want to push back on. I want to push back on that, not necessarily at you, but
Mm,
some listener came up and said something that really upset me because the way he said it was like this is only applies to Victor Osimhen. This is something that applies to every striker, most strikers. He went on, okay, to sign Victor Osimhen, the clause was 75 million euros. Then he went on to talk about sell-on clause and adding other things. Now, if a sell-on clause is not a definite figure, if Liverpool now are able for, if Newcastle United and Liverpool are able to come to an agreement to sign Isak, right? There will be that 120 between 120 and 150 million pounds done. Then there'll be the weekly wage, which he included in that thing. There'll also be the sell-on clause because Newcastle United will include the sell-on clause. Whether or not Liverpool ends up selling him or not, it's a different thing. They will include it. And when I did my calculation, he came up to 187 million euros for Siemens. I came up with following his logic with 202 million for Isak. If you're adding all those things, because Isak is on 120 now, and definitely is going to be doubled. That's not the normal thing that happens to players when they move. It's not just a 20,000 top, it's usually double. So with
yes,
this Osimhen thing, I just think the financial thing was just overly pushed. I tell people that you see football, what footballers earn is mad money, crazy, crazy money. Don't even think about the wages of players. It's mad. Let the club accountants, deal with that because players earn crazy money. And Victor Osimhen's wage, in my opinion, is not out of this world when you look at what footballers earn. I just think the narrative that's set around him for whatever reason is didn't help. So
yes. So when I was referring to the package, it wasn't just the transfer fee. I think his weekly pay because for a club like Newcastle,
mhm,
if Isak is their highest paid, or one of the highest paid, earning 120.
mhm,
Victor Osimhen can't earn 120. Minimum would be 180, 200 because of the player of his caliber.
Yeah,
And there've been discussions that Isak wants up to 300 or so. And this discussion started a long time ago, but that hasn't materialized. So I don't see Newcastle breaking their wage structure for Victor Osimhen when they were dragging all their feet to break the wage structure for Isak that is in the club. And perhaps so the thinking behind that is let's put PSR to one side. The thinking is that if they do that, in 6 months' time, towards the end of the season, players will be lining at the manager's door. Uh, Tonali,
yeah,
Bruno, they all line up and say, "Where is my own pay rise?"
yeah,
Yeah, but you know, you you get what you pay for.
yeah.
So if you pay for Victor Osimhen, then you are getting goals.
You're getting
So
goals. You're getting like people don't get Victor. I've not seen a player. I used to call DJ Drogba spirit, not because of the goals he scored, but once DJ Drogba was on that pitch, everybody, his teammates, he dragged them
yes,
along. The way he played,
I I
everybody
agree.
buys
I
into it.
agree.
The
I
fans,
agree.
everywhere is shaking once DJ Drogba is on the pitch. And since DJ Drogba, I've not seen any striker like that. As of course, I've seen strikers that are good quality, Haaland, King, good. But when you see someone that has the embodiment, Victor Osimhen is that guy that is the way he plays, his spirit, his aggression, everything. I just think clubs they've missed a trick on signing Victor Osimhen, but Galatasaray let it go there. Hopefully, he can score 60 goals, double his this thing. But there's one person I want to talk about because if Juventus are keen on Muani, and I think they could be open to letting him go. So I'm thinking, shouldn't Newcastle United be interested in him? That's Vlahovic.
Yes, I was thinking about that yesterday because they want to let him go and he would be a good alternative at this point. Yeah, so I think it's all on the cards. I don't think anything, especially for Newcastle, can be ruled out because they are getting to that point where somebody needs to come through the door. And,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
if the targets they've all been going for, they've all decided to go to the different club because they don't feel like Newcastle is the best fit for them at this point in time, then they need to get someone through the door. Yeah,
I
it's
think
just not going well for them in this
let me throw this
transfer
at you.
window.
Let me throw this at you. Given that Newcastle United, of course, they have more money than everybody in this league, at least their present owners, and seeing how Brighton have become this stable, well-run club that makes a lot of money, transfer markets, they're able to get these gems, scout these gems from all over the world, bring them in, and they come in and perform in top level. Seeing that Newcastle they have more money than Brighton, what do you think about them implementing something similar but at a slightly, higher level than Brighton? Do you think that would work or? You think?
So it was what I was discussing before about the culture and the
Mhm,
structure. What's the vision of the club? Um, Regardless of the ownership of Newcastle,
mhm,
with their money, most English football Premiership clubs they have the money to do what Brighton are doing.
mhm.
But the problem is they need that vision. They need the infrastructure in place to build the foundation to be able to start making data-driven decision. You need to have the personnel in place. So Brighton, even before the owner bought the club, has been involved in businesses that uses a lot of data in coming up with numbers. So there's a lot of computing
Mm-hmm.
permutation involved, and they've built their own data model. So not just Newcastle, many clubs should be looking at Bournemouth and Brighton to try to model what they are doing, because they've set the standard and template for teams to follow. So if the sporting director of the team in Newcastle, that is the direction they want to take, then they have to start now. And I don't think you are far off from what you are saying, because they've hired a new sporting director, and
Mm-hmm.
he has had a lot of successes in. So I read his profile briefly, but I can't recall his name or the teams he's been successful previously.
Mm-hmm.
And he is from a data background. I believe maybe he worked for Microsoft or something, but he has worked with a lot of data in several projects, and he's been successful in his previous clubs. So perhaps Newcastle have started looking in that direction. I find the entire sporting director responsibility, the recruitment process, the data models and decision making of when to sign a player or not. I find that entire process very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe perhaps because of the success uh, Edwards and Richard Hughes in Liverpool are having now and have had previously. So I just find that very fascinating, where there's precision, there's data driven informed decision making. Is not just off the cuff and you just go and sign anybody, or because you watch some highlights on YouTube and someone has done some flicks and tricks, or
Mm-hmm.
he's played one match against you and he performed well and you feel like he'll be a good fit. So it feels like more and more clubs would be leaning towards that direction. And I think if Newcastle go in that direction, they would definitely have more success given their fan
I think
base.
if they go that direction, they compete for Champions League regularly.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. Well, it's an interesting one, and it's something I would want to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
given the fact of your knowledge of up and coming Nigerian and African talents playing in other teams. How do we ensure that in Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
or these players, how do we ensure that the right talents are being um, elevated to the
Yeah.
teams? Is that the job of the government, the clubs in Nigeria, or individuals? They need to take responsibility, because if you compare that to Brazil, it's
Mm-hmm.
completely different. So, how do we ensure that we can adapt what we are seeing with these successful clubs and try to take that to the lower grassroots level and
Yeah.
start from there?
Yeah. So I think we should have a separate show where we do this, because I can talk
Yes,
about this up for multiple hours. But
yes,
it's the answer or solution is you need different should I say actors need to be in play, need to be involved, need to be part of it. So firstly, the clubs have to look at themselves, or the LMC, League Management Company, or the NFF. They have to look at themselves. This, of course, Minister for Sports or the National Sports Commission right now should give that direction. Because I look at people, they laugh at Saudi Pro League. I say, you're laughing at Saudi Pro League because you support Liverpool, you support Chelsea, you support Manchester United. They are trying to make their league good. So that's right. So the first thing is that must have that direction to say we want to make our league good. And one thing that we would have to incorporate is promoting young players. So young players should be able to progress. Every club should have an academy. Every club, matter of course, If you don't have an academy, you are not going to exist as a premier, as a football club in Nigeria, whether in the MPFL or the division below, the NNL. You're not going to be a club. You must have that club. You must have that academy beneath you where players are promoted. And then you see it as an asset. You see those players as assets, And then I think, how do you make the league work? Okay, say NFF, you've shown you can't run the league. LMC, you've shown you can't really run the league. So why not just be in charge of officials, the referees, linesmen, and all that thing? But when it comes to the business side, look at Clear Lake, look at Blueco, look at Red Bull Group, look at companies that are, interested that their part of their business is investing in, sports and football. So what you then say is this: okay, and we're not doing charity because charity, that's how a lot of people get deceived and played, and you get tied to business, pure business deal. So let's say, for instance, Red Bull Group, you come in, we'll call the Nigerian Premier League the Red Bull Group Premier League. This is for the next 5 years. You have the license. Every club, and we have a different model. Forget whatever UEFA they're doing. Nigeria, you have a different model. For every club would have your branding on their shirt, whatever. That's the commercial thing. You will manage it. You manage it. Transfer fees, you get a cut of the transfer fee from all the clubs. Because you have to do business. For all the clubs, you get transfer fee for any player that leaves any of those clubs. So the training centers, the stadia, that will be your contribution as Red Bull Group or Clear Lake or whichever investment. That's how you get money. The training facilities, the stadia, you will build them, you will put them in place, right? Make them up to code, set up the academies. So, but any player that is sold from the league, from whichever club, whether it's, let's say, for instance, Red Bull Rivers United or Red Bull Eimba, would go to a percentage of those transactions to go to them. So what I'm saying, we get the league set up right. Then the next place you go to is where I am involved, you are involved, sports journalists are involved, other content creators are involved, and all that. The narrative around these players. Before I go further, talk about Nigerian side, let's talk about two players from the same club. We have Ethan Waneri, you have Max Daumann. When Ethan Waneri was giving his debut, I thought I was criticized. There was less focus on Ethan Waneri's ability. You're giving a youngster debut. You're just being arrogant. You want to show yourself. That's what they were saying about Teta. But Max Daumann, I have no issue with the kids because they're children. So I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the system. But for Max Daumann, look at the praise. Oh, his skill, he's next to Messi, and all that stuff, right? So you can see the clear distinction in narrative. Look at Brazil. There's something I said about Estevao Willian when he was linked to Chelsea or the move. I said, no, he's the best player since Neymar. There's no one even close to him. That I said, the moment Estevao Willian leaves Palmeiras and joins Chelsea, there will be another name that will pop up. There'll be another name that will pop up. And true to form, like clockwork, he's joined Chelsea and we've heard of an Eduardo in his own Palmeiras, whether he's 15 years old. No doubt the guy is talented. And in most of these cases, the players are talented, they are gifted. But what pushes the player's value to the next level is that narrative around the player. That's what pushes you to superstardom. That's what raises your brand up. So everyone is talking about him now, Eduardo. But there's a player. I don't know if I've sent you his link previously, or you can check him out. Onyebuchi Obasi. I tell you, that boy, anything Vinicius Jr. can do, that boy can do it. Any skill he can do, that boy can do. Obviously, he's not playing at the level of Real Madrid, so that's clear. So for a player like that, he needs to get to that level and show that, yes, I can do that. But on a base level of natural skill, ability, pace, dribble, shooting technique, he can match up. But because you don't have that pathway where he's grown through the grassroots academy, and you've had the media and narrative creators around Nigerian league talking, oh, this superstar player, this is good. Meanwhile, here, an 8-year-old playing for under eights, if he scored 40 goals playing for under eights, those 40 goals he scored playing for under eights will be used to hype. Oh, this is a youngster, wonderful kid, 40 goals for under eights. Then that follows the player obviously as he continues to grow and and all that. But we don't have that. Nigeria doesn't have that. That's why when people mock Saudi Pro League, and I see Nigerians being the ones mocking Saudi Pro League, I just think people are stupid. I wanted to say that I just think people are stupid for mocking Saudi Pro League, because one thing they've realized, England will not come and make your Saudi Pro League good. If you want to have a Saudi Pro League that is good, that you can attract players, it has to be something you're looking towards and do. And then what they discovered that we have more money than everybody on this planet. So we'll use that money, attract people from everywhere. They've signed, Al Hilal has signed your boy, Nunes. Look at what these guys are doing. Al Nassr, Cristiano Ronaldo, Felix has joined them, Kingsley Coman has joined them. There's one Inigo Martinez, I think he's centre back from Barcelona that they signed. So what happens is each time you see this transfer made, attention goes to them. So it's not just the player coming to play for those clubs having quality. The moment you sign those players, they look, oh, who is signing this guy? And if the Nigerian league is properly packaged rightly, it can be that one stop, it can be the last bus stop for players before they go to Europe. So rather than going, when I mean Europe, I mean mainstream Europe, top 5 league. So rather than going to Moldovan second division or Lithuanian 5th division, you're in the Nigerian league. And then and that can be for all of Africa. So Senegal, the top Senegalese player will be in the Nigerian league. So before they then move, if they're going to France, that's the first place they move from. So you need to have that clear intention from a National Sports Commission, clear intent from the league management company, from the NFF. And one thing that they need to understand is, if it's money you want, if you're thinking of we still be making money, if the league works rightly, if Nigerian football as a whole works rightly, you make that money. And while I talk about having the structure, stadium, and all the kind of things, the narrative is more important thing, because there's this boy from Gremio that Chelsea were linked to. What's this? Gabriel Meck. Chelsea were linked to him, but he had not played first team football for Gremio. And when you look at the fields, we had the Gremio Academy or youth team we used to play on. It's not super amazing. It's like for someone that grew up in Port Harcourt, it's like 6 field, like 6 field, the normal pitches you see, where people play grassroots football and all that, in Nigeria. So, but the hype narrative around that player, and that's one thing that Nigerians missed a trick with Victor Osimhen, because why people value Brazilian players, Argentine players, is what Maradona and Pele have laid the foundation for decades and decades ago. So for me, I think, to answer your question, I know I've ended up speaking for a long time, but it is tied to multiple actors all, playing their role in the script. So the media people have to rightly create narratives around these players. And I'm not saying a player who can't trap a ball, you say he's Messi. No, because the talent is there. Then it's the narrative that then makes that player become that superstar. That makes the player become a superstar. And it's when that league, you begin to show that, our league is pretty decent. Then you begin to also do data things, like getting videos, creating apps where people can, watch highlights of this, creating some. You can have even a league app that provides data for people who go score, assists, distance covered, and things like that, those kind of things. So the thing is, and you have technology available that you can just plug and play. You can just get off the shelf and incorporate, into your league in general. So these are things that they have to look at. That they have to look at, and everyone has to play, their role for the Nigerian player to really be valued, because that's what skill, ability. Now, there's a boy I talk about a lot on this channel, Areri Korabo, a striker, was on loan, signed by Lillestrøm on loan to Mjøndalen. If that boy was Brazilian, that boy is not going to, with due respect to Norway and other Scandinavian leagues, that boy is not going there. He would have been straight up to maybe a Barcelona, a Real Madrid, and all that. But he can be as skillful he is, as prolific as he is, scoring 40 odd goals, in the in grassroots football before he left. But if you don't have that visibility, if people don't know you, then you can score 5 billion goals, and it's not going to move any needle. So I think, in a nutshell, that's what we need to look at, and that's the mentality of this player is not good enough. Because each time I have some interactions with people, when I talk about, I already Porabo, Onyebuchi Obasi, or even some people, once I even mention Rio and that he is even Nigerian, they say, do you think it's Lamine Yamal? As in trying to say that Lamine Yamal is super special, that he's maybe he has certain traits that just makes it that he is the only sort of player that can play first in football, being so young. So those are the kind of things that need to change for Nigerian players to go that high up. Look at Tula Rokodare. If he was Brazilian, the move would have been different, because you would have, the value metric would have been different. So I think those are things that need to change. Everybody needs to do their own bit. And what we don't get, final point on that is that what we don't get is that high tide raise all boats. So if the Nigerian league is doing well, it means the Nigerian player is valued more. If the youth are progressing well, they're valued more, they attract more money. Nigerian agents that deal within that, you can be a multi-millionaire in pounds, dollars, or whatever, being an agent only in the Nigerian league. The media people there, you become subject matter experts instantly, right? So when Sky Sports want to talk about, let's say, an Ahmed Aruna that they want to sign Wonder Kid, who are they going to call? They're not going to call Jason Conde or Perry Groves from TalkSport. They're going to call someone who is a home-based journalist that watches the player on a daily basis. You now become the expert, and you now become the one that will now be interviewed. And you not be interviewed. That interview is not going to be for free. It's going to be a paid gig. It's going to be a paid gig for you. So more money comes into the club, more visibility improves. The players are valued more. So it improves everything. So those are the things that people have to look at. And if, like I said, I keep saying this, if sports commission board people, LMC people, is money you're all about, if the league is thriving, doing well, the entire ecosystem, Nigerian football ecosystem, is working well, grassroots, you're having players channeled into club academies, you have that pipeline. It's a win-win for you. You make money as well, and it's a win-win because you sell a 20-year-old, he goes to maybe France, and he'll be bought for good money because he'll now be valued, because he's coming from a proper league. Then you have a youngster, 17-year-old, that takes his place instantly, just as it happens in Brazil, instantly in the first team. And that youngster gets to play 2 or 3 years, 18, 19, maybe 20. And then he's now in the eyeballs of bigger clubs outside. And you have a very buoyant league. So those are the things that need to happen. So, but I think what's happening right now is they look at things like charity. They keep waiting for FIFA to come and give you £2 million, and then everybody scrambles over the £2 million, and nothing happens. You look at it as a business and hire what you don't have, because that's one key thing about business. You hire what you don't have. Okay, management, in terms of managing this thing and being commercially sharp about it, we don't have it. Let's get people who are in the business of doing this. This is what they do, making money from sports. How do we make money from this? Let everything run properly. You take charge of administrative function and, you know, and what's it called, and officiating and all that, and you see it as a proper business thing you're doing. So that's how I see it, yeah. So I don't know how you see it.
Yeah, it's fantastic analysis. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so that's how I see it. So if you just joined the show and you saw on the thumbnail Isak's face and you hear me talk about talking about Nigerian Premier League, it's not a wrong show. So just to go through what we've talked about so far, Isak says he's no longer going to play for Newcastle United, irrespective of what happens, whether he did disagree with Liverpool or not. He doesn't want to be even reintegrated into the team, so he will be going. So let's see if Liverpool and Newcastle United are able to agree a deal. You've had talks about Baleba, Manchester United is still interested. The player is keen, but not going to force a move. So the two clubs have to agree, and we know Brighton. Brighton would always demand premium transfer fee for their players. Alejandro Garnacho says he's ready to stay without playing football for 6 to 12 months, as long as he gets his move to Chelsea. And we've talked about other transfer news as well, but I want to talk about this. I want to ask you this because we've seen two players linked to Spurs. So, do you think if they get these players, does it now push them into that top four bracket, or is it an improvement? And first off, one is Savinho. Spurs that linked with Savinho from Man City. So, what do you think about that move? First, Savinho to Spurs. It's gonna. So, if in the chat, what do you think about Savinho to Spurs? Is that Savinho to Spurs? Savinho to Spurs. Okay, Frank is off. For me, the way I see it is, I think he improves them because when you look at what they have on the flanks, you might say they have Matistel, but I don't think Matistel has been super impressive. So I think Savinho instantly improved them, and then with Kudos in the team, and you have Odebear, so that means probably Savinho can play on one side while Odebear plays on the other. While Odebear plays on the other. So I think he can definitely improve Spurs, but is he enough to push them into that top four race for sure? I don't really think so, but maybe top six. Because when you look at the teams around, because I think this season's top four probably would be Liverpool, would be Chelsea, would be Arsenal, and would be Man City. Then outside of that top four, it's anyone's game really. Because no, Bournemouth, would they have as good a season as they had last season? Not quite sure. Newcastle United have not been able to really get most of their targets through the building. So that's a question you have to answer. And then you look at Spurs, though they've got Kudus, they've got Savinho, the Odebear, it's already there. So that improves their team a bit, but does it really push them into top four? No, I think probably six, between seventh and fifth. That's where they may end up finishing. Because I just think Thomas Frank will get them playing in an organized way. And initially, I don't think Spurs fans will be all too happy with how he sets the team. He sets the Spurs team up because it may not be super flowing attacking football, but I think it will be very, very efficient football. And they will give a lot of teams a run for their money. And then Nottingham Forest, have they really done enough? I know they've kept Morgan Gibbs White, but look at the business they've done. They've gotten Ndoye. They've gotten Ndoye to the building, but is that enough for, to push them? There, Awuni is still there. Chris Wood is still there as well. So the business they've done doesn't really push them that much higher. Fulham haven't really done that much business. They've been linked with some names that I like, but nothing concrete has been done. So I think Spurs may just have a way of sneaking in there. And with the business Manchester United are doing, most likely they could also find a way to creep in there. So I'll be back in a minute, but let's just go on a brief break. Yeah, so we're back. So Frank has dropped off. That's fine. Hopefully, he'll be back on another show. So that's brilliant. So overall, what's his opinions on what we've discussed so far on the channel? We talked about Isak thing saying he's not going to play for Newcastle United again. You think that's something that can even be saved? If you're a Newcastle United fan, do you even still want him in and around your club? And people have said you have him, serving drinks at the club, but that's not going to happen. You're not going to pay him crazy wages that footballers are on to have him rot on the bench or play with the reserves. And then we've had different transfer news. Alejandro Garnacho, super keen on Chelsea. He's also throwing his toys out of the pram at nine at Manchester United. So let's see how that all shakes down. Manchester United volume in around £55 million or £60 million about. Chelsea want to pay 30. Chelsea fans, are you keen on Garnacho? Anyways, Manchester United, you think your club should hold out on their £60 million valuation or £55 million valuation, or you think they negotiate with Chelsea, let him go for maybe £35 million or thereabout, since he's not even going to play for Amorim because he's fallen out with Amorim last season, and then Chelsea. Do you think, from a character standpoint, Garnacho is a person you want in your squad? And then well, things like Javi Simons, take on it. RB Leipzig are interested in getting Christo Nkunk Nkunku going the other way, but apparently both clubs don't want to do a swap deal. They want to have the deal done as separate transactions, and I'm thinking it probably will be for FFP reasons, and additionally for Chelsea it will be PSR reasons as well. So let me know some opinions on all the talks we talked about. Baleba as well, leaving possibility of leaving Brighton for Manchester United. Do you think that would be an easy deal? Manchester United fans, do you think that's a deal that improves your team greatly? I think it does improve Manchester United 100%. Like I said, I would sign a Baleba. I would have signed a Baleba first before signing the Sesko, because you could make do with your Zegzi, even your Rasmus Højlund, if you put the right structure around them. So in Baleba and another central midfielder would have been the option to go for. Let's see if they're able to do it. And Manchester United fans, if you're thinking it's going to be an easy deal where you pay £55 million, £60 million, and you get Baleba from Brighton, then I need to have what you're drinking. But so Manchester United probably may have to pay not of £100 million to get that deal done. And towards the end of the show, or whilst we have Frank on here, we're talking about Nigerian football, why it's not getting the recognition that it supposedly deserves, and things like that, and the players, why the value, at such a, why the value for Nigerian players is so low. For me, I feel it's a collective thing, because one, the league should begin to reimagine itself, rework on itself, because no other country has or should even have the responsibility of making your own league good. That is your own responsibility. You should focus on making your own league good, making your own league good. And you look at the commercial aspect, the business aspect, get people who have a track record of investing in sports, making money off of sports. You get those ones involved, they'll always drive you right because they want to make money. And you can also make money. You have players who will be playing in the league that will feel valued. And then the media have to do their thing and stop disparaging Nigerian players. We've seen what Sondolise had come out to say. Now, for me, it felt intelligent, it felt knowledgeable, but it was just sprinkled with ignorance and half-truths. Because, like I've said, nobody deserves £200,000 a week. Nobody deserves £300,000 a week. But in the capitalist world we live in the commerce-driven world we live in, and with the sort of money generated in football players earn crazy money, 120, 150, 300. It's crazy money. So it's not just a Victor Osimhen thing. So Olise went on to say, the release clause, 75 billion euros. You talk about salaries and all that, but you can do that for every other player. Isak that we're talking about right now, if he is to go to Newcastle United, to go to Liverpool, his wages will be doubled at the very least. And then I'm sure Newcastle United would increase the sell-on clause. So if you go by the metric that someone like Sondolise has put out there, it probably will be going for the north of 200 and something million pounds. So these high numbers, it's not just a Victor Osimhen thing, it's not just a Nigerian player thing. So when people who are meant to know come up and tell half-truths, probably because Victor Osimhen, has sort of fallen out with their class of 94 brother, just doesn't sit right with me. It's just not fair. Look at every other player in that class. They have sell-on clauses, they have high wages. Take your eyes off the high wages. So content creators, media people, journalists have the responsibility of helping us keep the value of Nigerian players. And it's not for TalkSport, it's not for Sky Sports, it's not for any foreign media outlet. That's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is on their own players. So when you constantly look down, constantly disparage, devalue your own players, what do you expect people outside the world to do? You expect them to now raise the value for players? That makes no sense to me. Because Sondolise, everyone is bowing down for him. Sondolise, no. Yeah. He is former captain for Nigeria Super Eagles, top class player, played for Dortmund, Juventus, Ajax. Good. But that does not mean he has the market on intelligence and common sense cornered. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Sometimes You know, in the song of the famous Nigerian singer Two-Face Idibia, Kuku Google am. Sometimes when people throw out information to you, just check it out yourself, and you see that, well, plus I don't want to go on a tangent, but what have you made of all we've discussed so far today? Thanks everyone who's been on this video from start to finish, or whenever you join. Thank you so much. If you're new, please subscribe to the channel, click notification bell so you're notified each time a video comes on the channel, whether it's pre-recorded or a live video like this one. And do share this content to people you feel will love this sort of videos. And I will say thank you one more time, and I will see you. Do have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you on yet another